What is good, everybody? How we doing? How we doing? It is the best weekend of the year. Is the NFL draft. I appreciate everybody waiting and having patience for me in the lobby. I am experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties right now with my mic, which decided to just kind of like die on me yesterday, unfortunately. But we're just gonna see how that kind of plays out. Hopefully, it makes it to the end of the stream. I don't know. I just bought a new one, so but yeah, I'm excited to get on here, talk some Steelers, talk some ball, answer any of your all's questions while we wait for this thing to kick off. So, as you guys can see, I have my top 100 big board in the description. Um, at the bottom line on the ticker. You guys can also find that on SteelersNow.com. I also put out another mock draft, my final one. I usually do 3 mock drafts. My plan there is like I usually try to do one early on in the process to give people some names to go watch, keep an eye on. And then the last 2 are just like strictly predictive. And I'm on a 4-year streak where I've been at least able to predict one player do during the that the Steelers ended up drafting. So hopefully we can make it 5, man. We'll see though. I feel pretty good that one of my mocks or one of those 3 mocks are going to have the right first round pick. But I will share my screen here in a minute. Just waiting on some other people to kind of jump in here. Want to give everybody the opportunity before we get too deep into anything. But I do appreciate all the love in the chat already. Yeah, Blitzberg says, mic issues during your busiest weekend of the year is some bad juju. Man, it never fails, dude. Like it, I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to say I'm like the most unlucky person ever, but it certainly feels like that sometimes. But if this is the worst of my problems, things could always be bad. But if you guys hear me, I may have to like go to my computer micro audio, so it may be a little bit. It'll definitely be like less professionally sounding quality, but I'm gonna get that straightened away tonight. And hopefully like I'll have a good mic for after the draft. I am gonna be on here streaming until about, I don't know, like quarter till 8, probably something like that. So we'll go for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, provided like you guys are wanting to hang around that long and ask questions and talk ball, wait for the lead up. I'm not gonna be streaming during the draft, but after the Steelers pick, I'll have some type of content. I don't know if I'm gonna go live. It probably depend on how hype I am for who they pick. I may go live. I may just do like a quick reaction. And then, of course, I know I haven't been doing like film room stuff on college prospects throughout the cycle for reasons that I'm sure like most of you guys probably are aware of with the college all 22. But I am going to do it for the Steelers draft prospects, kind of crossing my fingers that it doesn't become an issue on other people's end. But we'll just see. I'm going to do what I can. And of course, I'll have like all kinds of stuff for Steelers now as well. But just want to kind of show some love. Aaron, I think you were the first person in here to comment, so I appreciate that, man. My guy here saying he's got the first like. Appreciate that very much. Time to end the speculation. I agree, man. I am so excited for this weekend. I know a lot of you guys have probably followed me. I know there's some like new people from YouTube that have like gravitated over to Twitter. I know there's a lot of people from Twitter that gravitated over to YouTube, but like if you guys have known me for like years, y'all know like how excited I get this time of year. This is my favorite time of the year by far. I love the draft process. I love draft weekend. Like even before I started doing like content creation and stuff, like this has always been my my favorite time of the year. I just think it's awesome. It's something that I really enjoyed as a kid, and I've just never kind of let that passion go. And now I get the chance to like come in here and talk ball with you guys. And there's no other place I'd rather be. I love this kind of stuff. So Wes, shout out to you, man. Hit the likes, guys. Yeah, if y'all could hit the like button for me, that would help me out a lot. Get this thing in the algorithm, push it to other people to let them know about the stream. Not gonna lie, AD Mitchell has that aura about him. We'll talk about that, man. We'll talk about that. It's gonna be interesting to see. There's a lot of smoke around Mitchell being off some teams' boards. I reached out. I did put up a scouting report video on the channel, which some of you guys probably already saw, but I reached out to some people yesterday just to kind of ask like what the vibe is around him, like if there's anything I need to know kind of off the field from some other people that would know more than I would. And it didn't seem like anything too concerning to me, but I do know that he's off a couple teams' boards. So it's going to be interesting. Could he, we'll talk a little bit about a potential slide for him. But definitely a name to keep an eye on. One of my guys in the draft. So I'm very excited to see where he goes. Are you taking questions tonight? Yes, absolutely. That is why I'm on here. I'm not on here to babble for 2 hours, just like to hear my own self talk. And I appreciate you guys for joining me and kicking back with me. But yeah, I'm taking all type of questions. So if there's players, scenarios, prospects, Steelers related questions that aren't necessarily related to the draft. If you guys want to sneak a couple of those in, you can too. I'll talk about anything and everything, man. Anything that you guys want to talk about is good with me. Like I said, I'm just trying to kick back, relax, wait for this thing to get started. Because if not, I'd just be pacing back and forth in my basement, waiting for everything to go. So, um, sounds good to me. I appreciate you guys hopping in. You're gonna be live for sure if we take AD. I can promise you that if the Steelers draft Mitchell, I will be live. I don't know what it will take. I don't drink alcohol at all, but I may have to take a shot or something if they end up taking Mitchell. I would be extremely excited. So, but we'll talk about that. Just now that we've got a good amount of people in here, I kind of want to go over my mock draft real quick, and then I will. We'll go over the mock draft just because I think it'll answer some of the questions I'm already seeing in the chat. We'll go over that, and then I'll come back and we'll go over some questions, and I'll answer everything. Um, as best as I can. So let me if I can share my screen here. Um, Here we go. Let's see. Mm-mm-mm. All right, so this is the big board. Like I said, I've got the ticker for this going on the bottom line. You guys can check that out. Number one player, I feel like it's pretty chalky with Caleb Williams, but I really see about 5 or 6 guys in this class that are like potential blue chips. Like really 5 for me is kind of usually the cutoff. This is the most I've had in a couple years, I feel like, but I feel like the big 3 receivers, Odunze, Harrison Jr., Neighbors, Williams, and then Joe Alt from Notre Dame. Those were the best 5 prospects that I watched in that kind of order. So really interesting group. Like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about like my mock draft just because like I'm sure some of y'all have seen this, but it does give me a chance to kind of expand on why I went the way it did. For me, the final mock came down to 2 players in the first round. Like it came down to Amarius Mims, Georgia offensive tackle. He's somebody that I mocked to the Steelers early on in like February. I've talked a lot about him. I think the Steelers are very interested in him and would definitely consider taking him at 20. Provided he was there, which I think he's got a good shot to be. But the name I circle back to, man, was Graham Barton from Duke, kind of for reasons I listed in this article. But I just think that, man, like he fits so much of like what they need right now at the pivot, just in terms of like needing that high tier athleticism. NFL teams don't typically prioritize the center position in the first round. The centers that do go in the first round, they're always elite athletes. And Barton literally fits that description to a T. Like his testing matches the tape. I think he's an outstanding run blocker. He understands angles. He has one of the best abilities to sustain blocks in this class. He's nasty. He finishes. I just like listen to like Arthur Smith and Pat Mayer talk about ball just over the years and just different things I could find about YouTube. There's so many of their comments that just perfectly match the description for that. So I just think they're going to gravitate towards him. And there's been a lot of talk about trading back. I've said that I'm a proponent of trading back. Like if you could definitely trade back and still get this guy, like you definitely do it. The problem is like the teams after this, I think would love to take Barton. The Dolphins could definitely use like a offensive lineman with versatility. The Cowboys, they always seem to prioritize the offensive line. Those teams are selecting just a couple picks after. So I'm just not sure. Like one of the things that kind of I wanted to bring up too, like when Khan was having his press conference, he said, they're open to trading down, they're open to probably trading up too, but you don't want to trade away from a good player. I just think that Barton's going to be too good of a player for them to trade down, excuse me. And that's why I went the way I did. But I do think there are some concerns. Obviously, make it the transition from tackle to center. I mean, it's not going to be an easy one. Like he's played center before, but it's only been about 400 snaps back in his freshman year at Duke. I mean, it's a long time ago, guys. Like his body's completely different. Like a lot's changed since then. But I do like that he has like some experience. I'm sure on like the top 30 and stuff, they've probably put him on the whiteboard. They've done all those requisite checks for him to make sure that like he's a guy that could do that, which I think he is. He's a really smart dude. But, there may be some growing pains early on as a rookie. The biggest thing for me is like some of his pass protection habits, I think will be interesting to watch for moving forward. Like he has a tendency to drop his back foot and get beat on the outside. That won't be as big of an issue, in my opinion, inside because players aren't going to be as quick or as athletic, and he's going to be more athletic than everybody, pretty much. And I think some of those issues not working in as much space will be kind of just a non-factor. But I do think that it is notable that he does still really need to work on his hand placement and his hand timing. He's consistently wide with his hands. And like when you're talking about a guy that's going to move into the pivot and go up against these defensive tackles that are way better rushers than like the guys that you see on the interior in college, but there's just not as much space and they're going to get their hands on you real quick. And if you have bad hand placement, he's going to get driven back. Like he does have a good anchor. Like he can really anchor, like when his hands are good, when he can refit, play with good pad level. It's just not overly consistent. And when you're talking about guys that, don't necessarily always play with good pad level, let guys into their frame, you're talking about moving those guys inside where there's less space and stronger, longer guys. That's kind of one of the concerns that I think would be. It would be a reason for me if you were to ask me like how would it not pan out or how would he take a little bit to get integrated. That would be the biggest concern. But overall, I landed on Barton. I do want to see like really quick if there's like any like Graham Barton related questions. Um, if we take Guyton, I'll be devastated. Okay, so I think I hopefully I did a good enough job explaining that. We'll kind of go to my second round pick. This is where things get off the rails. I expect the next 72 hours to be pretty insane, and that's why I wanted to make my mock draft a little bit insane. And let me see if I can get this right here. Yeah, so the second round, I got the Steelers trading back up for AD Mitchell. This so there's a lot of things that went into this. I was trying to think about what the Steelers have looked for at the receiver position, right? Think about all the names that they've been rumored to like have interest in. They had a contract out there for Tyler Boyd. They wanted Mike Williams to visit the facility. They waiting for Cortland Sutton. I know that they've called on Brandon Ayuk. Those are all like bigger body receivers, right? Guys that could play on the outside. Then I started thinking about it, like what guys that fit that profile have they shown interest in that are going to be available at 50? Well, Mitchell's definitely not making it to 50, even if he starts to slide. And I won't say definitely because like his stuff, there are teams that have him off the board. So like he could slide. I'm not saying he can't make it to 50. That would be outrageous to me. The other guy that I kind of thought about trading up for in this scenario was Xavier Leggett. He's been talking about saying that he's been getting some late first round buzz. He's going to go anywhere between 25 and 40 or something like that. That's what he was saying on social media. The Panthers like him a good amount. So I want to know, like, I think they're probably going to have to move up if they want that style of receiver. Now, could they stay at 51 and just say, hey, look, we're going to take like Ricky Pearsall if he's there? I like Pearsall a lot. He's a top 40 player for me. I think he's 38th on my big board. It's just, to me, he doesn't necessarily fit the same kind of archetype as the other guys that I mentioned, because one of the biggest things that one of the only real big things that concerns me about Pearsall is he doesn't have the play strength that you typically want. Like he does get rerouted pretty easily. You don't see him consistently play through contact all that well. I just don't know if that's really what they want. So for me, I think that Mitchell is going to slide. It sounds like there's a real chance that he's going to get out of the second round. My kind of trade partner, my dance partner here was the Titans. So the Titans don't have a third round pick in this year's draft. They pick it like 35, 37, something like they pick it 38, excuse me. But they wouldn't pick again until like after 100. So I just was like, okay, we'll just give them, another bite at the apple on day two. I think the Titans are probably, I mean, they've made some aggressive moves this offseason, but I think they could definitely stand to, acquire more draft capital. And then the 6th round pick, it just makes it work on the Rich Hill trade calculator. If you guys are familiar with that, just points wise, it makes it work, and it's pretty even on both sides. So that was kind of the thought process behind the pick. I would do this all day. I mean, you guys that know me know that I'm a huge believer in Mitchell's talent. I think that there are some, I'm not dismissing, the effort and things like that. I think that those are things that I trust the Steelers organization to work through. Like a lot of the same stuff that I heard, like I said, I reached out to about 8 people yesterday just to talk about Mitchell, guys that like have been around him or would know more than I would, and they pretty much all said like he loves football. It's just you got to get his blood sugar right. You're gonna have to get him to focus more, keep him engaged, and things like that. And I just trust the Steelers so much with these type of players. I mean, all the guys with like these, we'll just call them exuberant personalities. Claypool, Juju, even Deontay, like towards like last year. Pickens is obviously a very vibrant personality. They just always seem to get the most out of these guys, and I trust Mike Tomlin, man, and I think that this dude can be an absolute like one of the better receivers in the league. I really do believe he can be one of the best wide receiver like X receivers in the league, and guys that can go on the backside of 3-by-1s and go get open against man coverage one on one all day long. They're super valuable, man. Like it's the most valuable thing that you can get at the receiver position, and it's super hard to find. Even a guy like Leggett to me is more of like a power slash like Z. He's got some inside outside versatility, but he's nowhere near as like refined against press coverage. Mitchell beats press. He's an extremely good route runner, really nuanced in the way that he moves. And guys his size just are not like nearly as fluid, as twitchy. With the straight line speed that he has, and some of the ball skills as well. So I'm bullish on the player. I understand that like there's some stuff out there that would probably make you shy away from him. It's just the concerns that I've heard as far as like why you wouldn't want this guy on your team. They just don't concern me as much as they concern other people. And I'm 100% like I'm saying this on camera in front of like 250 people, just the same way I do on Twitter. Like every single year, there are certain guys that I am higher on than the consensus, and I trust my eyes, man. Like there are times where it gets me in trouble. 100%, I'm wrong from time to time, and I am right from time to time. So this is a guy that I'm willing to stand on the table for, just because I'm a big believer in his talent, and that's kind of what led me to the pick. And the Steelers have shown they've done a ton of homework on him too, and it makes me even more comfortable if they did take him to where I wouldn't be very concerned at all about the off-field stuff, because they saw him. They got a formal at the combine. They got a top 30 visit. They sent new wide receivers coach Zach Azani to the Texas Pro Day to see him and Xavier Worthy. So like these guys, like they've spent so much time around him. So if they're going to take him with one of these draft picks, it tells me that they're comfortable with where they are. So that's kind of where I went. I think it could happen. It's definitely a unique, probably mock draft scenario that not a lot of people have, but we'll see what happens. But kind of my third round pick here was Blake Fisher from Notre Dame, guy that I think a lot of people are mock drafting. I know my guy Nick Martin from All Steelers put him in his mock draft. I think my coworker Nick Faribault from Steelers now put him in there as well at this exact same spot. I just think it makes a lot of sense, right? I think the Steelers do ideally want to add a starting caliber tackle, and I think that Blake Fisher has the tools to get there. He's only 21 years old. I just think that like when you look at his build with the length, some of the stuff that he can do in the run game, the way that he finishes, can square guys up if in space. He's a pretty good puller. I think that there are tools for him to be a pretty good pass protector too. I wouldn't call him like an outstanding athlete or extremely toolsy, and that's probably why that I think he's going to end up going, a little later than some of these other guys. But I do think that the Steelers would definitely like him. He had a top 30 visit with them. They've shown some interest in him throughout the process. I think he had a 4-month combine as well. But I love the length. I like the independent hand usage that he flashes in pass pro. That's something that, Pat Mayer like preaches a lot. Like I said, I think he's got the athleticism to be a starting caliber player. He came in at the 79th overall player on my big board. So like he finished with, a late third round grade is pretty much what that equates to, I believe, on my spreadsheet. But I think if he's still here at this point, tackles do tend to get overdrafted. And I could see like there's going to be a huge run on tackles in the first round. So they're going to be flying off the board. So there's a chance that Fisher could like go higher than, other people say he would. So we'll see. But I do like it. And I also think like maybe he's not like a day one starter that comes in and just takes over for Dan Moore. But Fisher's played the last 2 years at right tackle. He came into Notre Dame as a left tackle, but they had, Joe Alt kind of came in and was like, yeah, we're playing him at left. So he does have, I think he could potentially play both sides, but ideally I think you would probably sled Fisher at right and then move Broderick Jones over to left tackle, which is, probably the more natural spot for him and maybe the best thing for the Steelers in the long term. But overall, I feel like if you can get, I feel like right there, I think the goal of every draft, right, is to try to come away with three starting caliber players or three future starters. And I feel like the first three, I feel like Mitchell and Barton will contribute immediately as starters, and I feel like Fisher could maybe start games for you early on in his rookie contract, if not day one. So my next pick, I kind of went, with me only having two day three picks, and this is not a very deep draft. Kind of had to get a little creative here. Jerry Jones is an interesting player. He tested exceptionally out of Florida State. I've watched a lot of that Florida State defense. They play a lot of man to man coverage. Um, but I really like how competitive he is. He's more quick than fast. He shows good burst when going downhill. He's a willing tackler. He's not always the best or most reliable in space tackling, but he's a guy that will play the run. He'll mix it up. I think he's got the right attitude to play in the nickel, which is like absolutely a prerequisite. If you won't tackle and you're not physical enough, or you're just not going to survive in there at the NFL level. So that's kind of where I landed. I do think that there's an interesting tie here. New Steelers assistant defensive backs coach Anthony Midget spent some time with the Florida State program last year, which is where he's from. I don't really I don't know if like they haven't shown really any interest in him and Renardo Green, who I'm also extremely high on. He's a top 50 player on my big board. So someone else I'm much higher on than the consensus. They haven't shown a ton of public interest in those guys. But maybe, once you get to day three, you're really just looking for traits. Jones tested like a really good, like a great athlete. I'm not sure he's that level of athlete on tape. The only concerns I really have for him is I just felt like when I was watching his tape, he wasn't as sticky as I wanted him to be in man coverage at the cornerback position. I talk about like natural, like reactive athleticism. And that's just basically being able to mirror the movements of the receiver. I mean, defensive back's the hardest position aside from quarterback, in my opinion, to play. So he just looked like he was really raw in that regard when he was asked to mirror, especially the good route runners. I felt like would get him off balance or whatever. But I do think that there's stuff to work with. He also is he's a special teams player. I mean, even in his fifth year in college last year at Florida State, he was still covering kicks and stuff. So I like that too. Whenever you get to day three, like you want guys, like you're really wanting like rotational guys, developmental pieces, but ideally those players are going to play special teams, right? So I just think that that makes a lot of sense. He's kind of projected, like the consensus board has him at like 140, 150. Really, guys, like once it gets to day three, all that stuff gets thrown out. Like I know I've said this a lot on the channel and on Twitter, but NFL teams big boards, they're only like 100 to 120 players long. They're not 500 like these draft guides that you see from the really dedicated people like your Dane Bruglers, things like that. But I could definitely see Jones being a nice player there. And the Steelers have a need at slot corner. They I think even if they drafted Jones, could they bring back a Chandon Sullivan? Could they bring back a Patrick Peterson? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw him sign Chandon Sullivan last year during the NFL draft. So I think that that's a reasonable scenario, and you can kind of bring Jones along slowly. Another guy that they've spent a lot of time with, Christian Boyd. They brought him in for a top 30 visit. Boyd was actually a combine snub, so they didn't get the chance to see him there, but they did see him at the Shrine Bowl. Nick Faribault was at the Shrine Bowl in person, said that he was really impressive from what I saw of all of his reps that I was able to catch remotely here in Louisville. He was good, man. Like he looked like one of the better players in the on the roster. I think that, the Steelers do return all their starters, Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi. But age is starting to become a little bit of an issue there. I think this is probably Hayward's last year. I would assume maybe he plays another one. I'm not sure. But he has a relatively high cap hit. I'm not a huge fan of Ogunjobi's game just from a consistency level. I just don't think it's there, especially for the cap hit. But they definitely need another piece. So a guy to develop. And while I don't think that Boyd will ever necessarily be a starter, he's played in the A gap, B gap, like he's played all the way from nose to a 3 tech to a 5 tech. He's got some pass rushing moves to his arsenal already. And I do think that there are some things to like about like his first step and things like that. I do question a little bit how he's going to be able to take on double teams, especially at the next level, at the NFL level. Like even if he's at 3 tech, like if you just don't handle those things really well on the defensive line, good offensive coordinators, especially guys that like to run gap and things like that, they will target you. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. Like I said, I don't ever think that he's going to be a full time starter, but in the sixth round, approaching the top, barely in the top 200 of a draft that, in my opinion, is not very deep. I mean, I watched. Um, in some capacity, like I have full grades on over 125 players. I probably watched a good amount more than that. I mean, it's just not a deep draft, man. I think that if Boyd's still available at this point, it would make a lot of sense, just to get some more juice, another young guy to try to take another shot on. So that's kind of the mock draft. So again, just kind of run through it real quick, and then we'll go with some questions. It was Graham Barton, a trade up for AD Mitchell in the second round with the Titans. Blake Fisher with the third round pick, fourth round Jarian Jones, slack cornerback from Florida State. And then interior defensive lineman Christian Boyd from Northern Iowa. So that's kind of where I laid. Hopefully you guys, found some value in that, and hopefully I explained it relatively well, at least. We'll try to see if I can stop sharing my screen here. Okay, so we got 266 people in here. I really appreciate you guys coming to chop it up with me, talk ball, kick back, relax until the draft starts. Just a couple things. One, I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm having some audio issues. So if I go silent for 10, 20, 30 seconds and have to start using my computer audio, it's not going to sound as professional. I apologize. I've got a new mic coming. Mic issues on draft weekend is a really big bummer. It is what it is. What are you going to do about it? So if I start to go silent a little bit, that's what happens. So, and then if you guys 283 people in here, if y'all could go like the stream, make sure you subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. This would help, kind of push this to other people who may find my content valuable. So I'm going to try to go back through the chat and just see if there were any questions. Like I said, you guys can drop any questions. I'm open to any type of discussion, really up until 7:45, 8 p.m. And I'll try to answer literally as much as I can. So see here. Yes, the draft starts at 8 for sure. Edge Cooper at 51. I think Cooper's a really interesting player. I actually got to talk quite a bit with Cooper at the combine. Really nice dude. One of the things that I like that he said was, he feels like his athleticism or his skill set is really built to these athletic running quarterbacks that we're seeing all over the NFL right now. He specifically mentioned to me Lamar Jackson, which I thought was kind of cool, because that was kind of what I was hinting at when I got my follow up in there. But Cooper's athleticism in a straight line, this dude's phenomenal. I think that his game against Alabama, where I think I want to say he had 3 sacks, maybe it had to be close to double-digit tackles. One of the best prospect games that I saw all cycle. I mean, he was absolutely dominant. He'll shoot gaps. He's got long arms. He's a little bit of a unknown in coverage because the way that they played him at Texas A&M was just gap shooting, all downhill stuff. He blitzed a lot. And then they used him it was kind of cool because whenever they played these running quarterbacks or athletes like Jaden Daniels from LSU, Jalen Milroe from Alabama, they had him spy the quarterback, and he actually did a really good job about that. So I do think he's an interesting player. I don't know if the Steelers would take a linebacker that high, but that was one of the things in my mock that I was kind of sacrificing with that trade up for a wide receiver. I do think that they are going to try to take a linebacker. It would, to me, I think the most obvious name is probably Ced Gray from North Carolina, a guy that's more of a pass coverage first linebacker, can play the ball. He's comfortable with his back to the quarterback, will play through the hands of the receiver. I think he's got really good range. He can go sideline to sideline, pretty good athleticism. The thing with Gray is his instincts versus the run aren't overly impressive to me, and I don't think that he's ever going to be somebody who's going to take on and stack and shed well enough to where you feel absolutely great about him playing on early downs, unless you have a defensive line that's able to keep him clean. So hopefully that answers your question about Coop and some other thoughts on inside linebacker. All right, so I like your Northern Iowa pick. Yeah, Boyd's a nice player, man. I watched as much as I could get my hands on. Northern Iowa was not the easiest thing to find, but I watched his matchup against Mason McCormick. That was a good game to watch. I felt like that was probably the best competition he faced. Good question here from Mark. Do we double dip at receiver or D line? To me, D line is not in the cards. I just don't think they could. I don't, with all the needs that they've got, like they have to come away out of this draft with a center that's capable of starting day one, and they have to come away with a receiver who's capable of making an impact, a real impact on day one. Like that just leaves you, unless they get some more draft capital, that leaves you pretty limited in spots that you can double dip with. I don't even know if they're going to be able to double dip a receiver. Now I think you can make a pretty convincing argument that they probably need a number two and a number three receiver, right? Like just given what's on the roster right now. So I don't know that I see the D line, but I definitely think receiver, maybe a guy like Luke McCaffrey would be a guy that they would target like in the 6th round if he was still there. My allergies are going crazy. Appreciate you guys for tapping in. Just trying to get through some of these questions. I see a question on here from Mark as well about Cooper DeJean. Maybe they're at 20. That's who I want. DeJean's an interesting player. He actually graded out better for me as a safety. I love the straight line speed. I think he's really, really strong. The dude takes on blocks. I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder. There are things to like when he's in zone coverage with his eyes like fixated, getting his vision on the quarterback. His ball skills are outstanding. I think he's really smart in zone, really good spatial awareness. I worry about him a little bit because Iowa towards the end of the season started playing him more in press coverage, and I just felt like he's got the straight line speed, but man, he's tight. He's high hipped. He's tight. You would see him get stacked by guys that just, in my opinion, did not look like NFL caliber athletes. And I'm just curious about what that looks like. I do think that he can hang at corner. I just feel like his upside's better at safety. Ideally, I think what you would really want to do with him is if you would maybe use him maybe as like an interchangeable safety, and then you would really want to slide him down to the slot. Like I would really want to see him kind of in that Jalen Ramsey role that he played in that Fangio system. Like that's kind of the thing for me. Like if you can get him in a zone heavy system where you can blitz him, he's a really good tackler. I like the player. I'm curious about how he's going to be used at the next level, but also a really good returner, like someone when he gets the ball in his hands. I really like that. So, a gunner question. This is like an unhinged question to ask, and I absolutely love it. Who are we getting to that can fit gunner? Darius Rush would probably be my best guess. Like I think they're going to have him and Trice, kind of battle that gunner situation out. Just as of right now, that would be my guess, and hopefully one of them guys can do it. Right, Rush actually did it quite a bit in college, and he was pretty good at it, I think. So that's definitely something to monitor. But yeah, day 3 guys, like you ideally want guys that can play special teams. What's good, Landon? I appreciate you tapping in with me, man. What's your thoughts on Lad McConkey? McConkey, for me, I think, let me go see where he finished. I want to say he finished around 30 or 35 for me. But I do like McConkey's game. He absolutely destroys off coverage, man. Like all these guys in the SEC that were just giving him these free runways, he was just making them look silly. The big things with McConkey's game that I really appreciate: the stop and start ability, exceptional, like probably the best in the class, to be honest with you, aside from Malik Neighbors. But his ability to stop on a dime, some of the cuts he makes on his routes, just really, really impressive, man. Like he almost cuts on his toes, which is absolutely just ridiculous. So, he's a good route runner. My concerns a little bit with McConkey are really just play strength related. I don't think that he has a very good plan to beat press coverage. I mean, he'll execute like a speed release, but just he doesn't really understand like how to, as much off the line of scrimmage and get guys leaning one way to cross their face or anything like that. I felt like he would sometimes allow guys access to his frame, and he just doesn't have the build to play like that. I do think his yards after catch stuff is really impressive. There's some times where he'll go over the middle. That's another thing I like. He's a smaller guy who maybe push to the slot, but he'll go over the middle. He's tough, but the transitions quickly to being a runner are really good too. So he's got good vision. He can make some splash plays for you. He finished with a 2nd round, like kind of an early 2nd round grade for me. I would probably feel pretty good about him going somewhere in the late 20s, kind of early 30s, probably, if I had to guess. I originally really liked the fit in Carolina for him before they got Deontay. Sorry about the allergies. I was trying to figure out where McConkey landed for me, but I guess it's on the ticker. You guys can look at that. He's definitely in the top 40. Steve with a really good question. Anyone know a good live stream show for the draft when the main man Steelers DB gets off at 7:50? Yes, I do. You guys can go check out Around the 412. My good buddy Zach Smith. If you guys are familiar with him, he's the co-host of Steelers Afternoon Drive for Steelers Now. You guys can go find him on Around the 412. Steve, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter or not, but I will retweet Zach's stuff so you guys can go find it there. And maybe like after I stop streaming, I'll put it in the chat for you guys to go rate his stuff. But he's a good dude. They always have a bunch of good guests. I don't know if Tyler's doing it or not, but he'll usually have some good people on there that'll keep you very entertained. Zach's a really funny dude too. So, um, my guy Jake, my main dog. Do you think Pittsburgh pounces if Fautanu starts to slip because of the knee injury? I'd love it, man. I'm very curious, like where he's gonna go, because I could see him going as early as top 10. I could see him sliding maybe to the late teens. But Fautanu to me is an outstanding obviously very high on him. He was the number 7 player for me. But he's an outstanding athlete. His hands are so incredibly quick. I mean, the amount of times that this dude can put guys in the turf, snatch trap is just unbelievably good. He plays a very unique style of ball. Like he's able to vary up his sets, vary up his hand usage to keep guys off balance. And I just think he's a really annoying player to play against, to be honest with you. And I think that his movement is probably it might be the best in the class, probably, to be honest with you. Now, his footwork and stuff is outstanding. He has outstanding mirror ability. He has plenty of range to play tackle. He has the length to play tackle. I think the things with him is he does have kind of like this frenetic pace. So he does have some, kind of rough losses in pass protection on tape, but I truthfully think that this dude can play all 5 positions for you on the offensive line. I would love to see him at center. I think if the Steelers take him, he'll play left tackle. But like center is definitely a possibility, 100%. Connor, I really can't say that because like I've only been able to find like clips and then like one game of him at center, man. The sample size is so small. Like even if he did have trouble snapping, like it was 4 years ago. So I'm not saying your question is a good one because of how many bad snaps we've seen over the last 5 years, but I don't think anybody really knows. So yes, Tyler, around the 412. Yeah, definitely go hop in with that. JPK Sean, what's up? What do you think about this new smoke about trading up? So seeing as I'm streaming and trying to like answer questions at the same time, I kind of need you guys. If something happens to where somebody like they just start to trade up, or like there's new reports from like credible sources, please, like not y'all know those people from credible about. I know they're looking to potentially move up. There's some people saying it might be for a tackle, maybe for a receiver. It's kind of interesting to me. Um, to me, trading up when you don't have an overwhelming amount of draft capital and you have the needs that the Steelers do doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, there are a couple prospects that I would personally do it. Um, I would send the farm for Roma Dunze. He's the number 5 player on my big board. I think he's absolutely fantastic. He's a day one, like impact, like borderline number 1 player who has the potential to probably be like, a high Pro Bowl, maybe even an all pro caliber type of receiver, very well rounded. I don't do a lot of comps, but I comped him to Braylon Edwards coming out. They have very similar bodies, but the tracking ability is absolutely special. He's dominant at the catch point, hand-eye coordination, body control, all that stuff is outstanding. He is a good route runner, like he's savvy. I do think that there are some stuff. I think he can be a little bit better against press, but I do think he does it at a pretty solid level. There's just not like a lot of really negatives to his game. I don't think he's the explosive athlete on tape that like he doesn't look turbocharged like Neighbors does. So I don't think you'll get as many explosive plays, but like he still is going to provide you plenty of that in my opinion. So I don't know, man. I would do it for him. And then Fautanu, who I just talked about, like if there was a scenario where they could move up a couple spots to get him, because I think he's, the second best tackle in the draft, I would do that as well. So, but yeah, those would be the only guys. I mean, ideally, I think you would really want to trade back, especially, even in my mock, like I said about Barton, I would love to trade back and still get a center, especially if you're going to take one in round 1. But I don't know if they'll do it. depending on who's there. Da, 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 da. Lots of good questions. I appreciate you guys tapping in with me, man. Coming to hang out before this thing gets started. Very, very grateful and appreciative. You think about Fuaga. Fuaga's an interesting player, man. I don't know. He's definitely someone that I'll just say that I see much differently than other people do. There's a lot of good to his tape. First off, I think that he is, as far as like what Arthur Smith wants at right tackle, he is that type of right tackle in the league. I think he's extraordinary in a zone scheme. Like he is so good at like when you're running to his side at kicking guys out. I mean, he'll run guys to the water cooler. He has the athleticism to execute reach blocks. He's quick. He's quick off the ball. He plays with violent intentions, unmatched intensity. There's a lot of stuff to like about him in the run game. In pass pro, I think that he anchors solid. There are some things that he does well. I am so concerned about how often he gets beat outside. I think that there were a lot of schematic advantages that helped kind of mask that a little bit to some people. Um, but he's really heavy on his outside hand. I think if you start him early and you have him in like actual true pass set situations where he's got a vertical set against an NFL caliber edge rusher with speed, he's just going to get cross chopped into oblivion because it happened all over and over and over on his tape. And obviously at the NFL level, guys are going to be not just quicker off the ball, but they're going to be better with their hands. And I'm just really worried about that being an issue. And I also don't think that like one of the things that I really look for in tackles, especially tackles that I'm going to take early. I mean, there's draft forecasters and guys that have Fuaga in the top 10. I mean, I think that's crazy in my opinion to play him at tackle and take him at that point. But I don't also see like the recovery ability either that I typically think of like when I'm taking a tackle in the top half of the first round. So he actually I have him listed as a guard, and he's more so like in the 20s for me. I think he was 25. So I still like the player. He was one of the earliest like second round grades, but he's not somebody that he might be able to play tackle in certain systems if you're heavy play action without a lot of true pass sets. I feel like if you're having to scheme that much around a tackle, I question why you would take that player super high on. But again, he's just somebody that I see differently. I mean, you go look at like other evaluators, like because I talked with John Ledyard on his podcast about this. There's a lot of smart people, man, that have him listed as a tackle. Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler. I think Brandon Thorne, who's probably like the godfather of offensive line play, I think he has him listed as a guard. But there's a lot of people that disagree with me. But we will see. This is a good question. I told you guys y'all can get your Steelers but non-draft questions in here. Is it possible that we keep Russ and Fields with the goal of being Fields is the future? I don't know. I think, to be honest with you, man, I like the way the Steelers approach this because I did not think it was going to be possible for them to get both of these guys, and they did. I just think it's taken two swings that neither one of which costed you literally anything. And then you really I don't think you should sign Fields to an extension. I don't think you should sign Russ to an extension. I just think you go into the season, you roll the ball out, and you let these guys kick it off. And if Russ plays well enough to keep the job, cool. If he struggles and it's you're 6-7 weeks into the season and you don't see this thing turning around, you roll Fields out there for the second half of the year, see if you got anything with him. And then guess what? If neither one of them show you enough to like where you want to run it back with them next year as a starter, you can take another swing in the draft, or you can go make a trade, or you can do, it's just, to me, I talk about process a lot. Even when the results aren't good, I want to see good process. And to me, like almost every one of Omar Khan's moves, I've been able to see the vision and the process for it. And that's why like I have a lot of respect for the job he's done so far. But the process behind not wanting to waste another year of Kenny Pickett and knowing there's such a limited ceiling with also like kind of a dangerous floor was encouraging to me, even if I only see Russ, for example, as a upgrade, but not necessarily a solution to their long-term issues. But I'm optimistic that they'll get better quarterback play from one of them next year. I'm cautiously optimistic, I'll say, but I think the process is sound because I think the worst thing you can do is kind of fall into that sunken cost theory where you're just we're just going to run it back with this guy because he's a first round pick and we invested in him, even though we know that like he's not the guy. And like I said, I think the process there is good. Da, 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 da. Any thoughts on Dan working inside? I don't understand that one either. Absolutely not for me. Um, Not trying to be like I don't that's another one I just don't get, to be honest with you. Did you hear Hendrickson threatening retirement? I did see that actually. It's kind of interesting. Da, 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 da. Ooh, this is interesting. Yeah, if you guys see this kind of stuff and like credible people, I want to know because like I'll find out in real time. So um Brian McFadden. Shout out to Brian McFadden, though. That's my guy. Hearing great things about Brian Thomas and the Steelers. Hmm. Thomas is interesting, man. He's really, really interesting. It's funny because McFadden said that, but Dane Brugler, the athletics draft guru, if you guys don't, um, I think that I hope that you guys find like my top 100 and my mock drafts and stuff like of use for you guys during draft weekend. That's why I do them because I love it and I want you guys to have that type of content. But you're missing out if you're not subscribed to the Athletic for Dane's draft guide. You're missing out, man. It's the best thing. It has so many good nuggets in there about like background and stuff like that. And I want to work. He's the gold standard, in my opinion, of the industry. Someone I have a lot of respect for. But why I said his name was he also has said publicly, I think twice now, that the Steelers are like infatuated with Brian Thomas. Like I think he even said maybe like 20 was the floor for Thomas, like implying that if he's there at 20, there's no way the Steelers are going to pass on him, which is interesting. I don't know. We'll see. We already talked about McConkey a little bit. I'd like to double dip at cornerback. Yeah, I mean, me too. 100%. I mean, I think that's the other thing too, and I've said this on here, I've said it on Twitter, but you guys like just temper your expectations a little bit because this is the first time ever I can remember where the Steelers have went into a draft with this many like glaring needs, right? Like they don't have a starting caliber center on the roster, they don't have a starting caliber receiver on the roster opposite Pickens. Normally, you see them try to sign like veteran stopgap options before they get themselves kind of pigeonholed a little bit into certain positions. So I would just say, just be patient. Don't set your expectations too high because there's a good chance that they're going to come out of this draft weekend, man, with some needs. No team's perfect. Roster construction is still underway. Obviously, I think bare minimum they cannot leave the next 3 days without a receiver and without a center. Like those are the two like non-negotiables for me in terms of like if they do that, I will be very disappointed. But that's just my thoughts. Mac, I think you were in here a little late, but I mocked Fisher in my Steelers now final mock draft to the Steelers in the third round. Let's see. Have I ever watched James Daniels? Yeah, I have. I don't know if you're talking about like Daniels at center. Have I watched Daniels at center? Yes. I remember watching one game of Daniels at center when he was playing the Rams with the Bears. I want to say it was like 2019, maybe. I don't know. It was a long ago. But yeah, I mean, Daniels, he was the center in college at Iowa. Very, very good athlete. My thing with Daniels is they seem a little bit hesitant, right, to move him. I see your follow up. Okay. Yeah, I think they just seem a little hesitant to move him inside. I mean, they've mentioned him or maybe alluded to him as a option, but he's just playing such good ball right now at right guard, man. I just don't know if you want to move him. That was the thing with Daniels, right? That the reason he didn't, in my opinion, hit his ceiling in Chicago was like they moved him around. Like he played center, he played left, he played right, and we've seen that in Pittsburgh too. Like that's not nearly as easy as everybody like makes it seem, right? Like it's just not because you got to think about it. Like for you guys that have ever played like basketball or golf or whatever, like imagine going and shooting hoops or getting out there on the golf course and swinging the other hand or shooting with the other hand. Like that's what it is. It's motor, it's muscle memory, and it's just not as easy. A good interview, like I know everybody brings up Kevin Dotson, but Kevin Dotson actually was interviewed by Brandon Thorne of Trench Warfare podcast. Like I said, the Godfather kind of offensive line play. If you're looking for more stuff on that, he interviewed Dotson and basically said Dotson was like, yeah, it didn't matter how long I was over there on the other side. I could never get comfortable with it. And some guys just don't get it. And then some guys can do it naturally. Everybody's different. My opinion though, is like Daniels is a good guard. Just, let him let him be a good guard. Signing to I want Daniels to sign to an extension before the season. So that's just my opinion on that. We need to win this year, gang. I hope so. I would love to see them get to the playoffs and actually like make some noise rather than, just barely scrape it in and getting their teeth kicked in by the Chiefs or the Bills or any of those teams. But yeah, I mean, I definitely expect the Steelers to be competitive at least for like a wild card. I like the roster where it's at right now. The draft's gonna be huge, though, man. I got faith in Omar. I know a lot of you guys probably were not around for last year's draft cycle, just because like the channel was like brand new. But I was a very big fan of Khan's first haul in the draft. They got a lot of good values on my boards, and I think honestly, not that judging a draft class after 1 year is the way to go, in my opinion. But I do think the early returns for the draft class were pretty good. I think Benton and Porter were at very worst solid to a like above average to solid starters as rookies. And I think if you can get that, especially when you got those guys in the second round, that's a dub. I know Broderick Jones is a little inconsistent. We'll see where he plays, but to me, I mentioned this on Twitter a week or two ago, but Broderick was always a 2 to 3 year project. I kind of knew that I wanted to get Broderick some experience last year, but I knew things were going to get a little rocky, and they did towards the end of the season. But I still think he's an impact run blocker. We'll see about the pass protection stuff. Still a lot of work to do with his hands, but we'll see, man. I'm optimistic. But yeah, it is probably a good time with 300 people in here for me to remind you guys to like the video. I appreciate that. Hit that like button, help me get this channel out for other people that might like my content. I appreciate that. And then it also a good reminder, like for people that will be here, all weekend, like hearing my thoughts on players. I take an objective based look at things. With everything like Steelers, the draft or whatever. So I will go over like the pros and cons to like players, to scenarios, to situations, and I'll give you guys like my honest, objective feedback. I don't sugarcoat anything. So like sometimes like people don't like that. I'm not like the rah type person who's just like no matter what is always going to say like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Like the Steelers aren't going to draft a center in the third round and I'm just going to get on here and say like, yeah, this dude's a Hall of Famer, whatever. Like, I just don't, I'm going to give you guys my honest opinions. That's what you guys can always expect from me. And that's just the way that I've always done things. If you guys have followed me for a while, y'all know that, but it's a good reminder. Cause like some people may think I'm like a hater if I have differing opinions or whatever. It's just how I am. I think you've got to have your own takes, your own opinions if you're going to do like content creation or really anything like this. Trade up with one of the thirds for Fautanu. You taking that deal? Yeah, probably. I think so. Right? Are you guys taking that deal? I'm just trying to think about like what would one of those third round picks get you though? Because you think about it, I'm just looking at the draft trade value chart on the Rich Hill model. Pick 84 is worth 170 points, so that would get you to 16 with Seattle. So you would be able to get that high. The pick 98, that's worth 108. That's only really going to get you, well, I guess like one pick less. So that's trading up about 4 or 5 spots. I really like Fautanu though. He's definitely a guy that I would love on the Steelers. I think if they're looking to trade up, I would assume that he is one of the targets, in my opinion. They've shown interest in him. He was a top 30 visit, 4-month combine. Yeah. Daniels. Yeah, I mean, I give credence to the Daniels thing. I just don't think that that's what they want to do, to be honest with you. I know that Khan said that. I'm not trying to call him a liar, but I think Khan's very good at his job and very calculated in what he says to the media, as he should be. I think that's a underrated part of the general manager job. He can say what he wants. I don't believe him. And there's no way a 7th-round pick, Spencer Anderson, as much as they may like him in house or whatever. There's no way he's factoring into draft plans or their plans for next year as far as like a starting caliber player. Thoughts on Samer still in the second? It's a little bit rich for me personally. I have him at 70. I think I'm a little bit I didn't know this until recently, until like I actually published my board and then went to like look at the consensus boards and stuff. I think I'm a little bit lower on Sanders still. I'd run through a wall for that player though. Like he'd run through a wall for whatever team's going to draft him. I love how he plays downhill. Will play the run. He hits, man, like way above his weight class. He's feisty. I like the ball skills too. He's a former wide receiver. He actually came to Michigan as a receiver. I think he had like 5, 6 interceptions. Some of those were not overly special, but I do think he's got good hands. He could be a good playmaker in zone coverage. I think he's actually really smart. I actually think the transition to receiver actually gives him a good feel for like route distribution and combinations in the back end. I don't think he's quite the exceptional athlete that he tested at. I think he's a good one. I don't think he's an exceptional athlete like he tested. And then I kind of some of the same things I said about Jerry and Jones. I just felt like there was like when they did ask him to play man coverage, I felt like there was a little too much separation. And if I'm going to take a guy who is obviously going to have to overcome significant size deficiencies, right? Like, I mean, he's what like 5'9". He's a really small guy. So if you already have that going for you, I need to make sure that you're at least in the hip pocket at all times of wide receivers, because if not, like you're not going to be able to make up ground in terms of like battling with guys at the catch point. I need you to make sure that at least you deter throws from being thrown your way by just being, in good position. And I just didn't feel like that he was always like that. So he didn't score very well for me in terms of like man coverage, which is definitely something to take into account with the Steelers scheme. But I do think that he's going to be a starting caliber slot corner in the league. I'm a little bit probably less optimistic about his ceiling and floor, to be honest with you, than what it sounds like from other people. Gino, is a chatter about us moving up real or just pre-draft smoke? I have no idea. I think moving up is not overly likely. That's just my opinion. I just think that there's just not there's only a couple guys, like I mentioned earlier with Fautanu, and like if Odunze were to somehow start sliding, which he shouldn't, but there's only a couple guys I'd be willing to trade up for. Everybody else, I feel like just with the Steelers, with the way the roster's at right now, I would probably just stand pat. I had Lad at 30. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was like somewhere around there, 30, 35, something. Um, Aaron saying Brian Thomas in the first, move up for Frazier in the second, Renardo Green at 84. Yeah, it would be pretty good for me. I have no qualms with that. Let's talk a little bit about Thomas, because I don't know if we've talked I don't know if I've talked a ton about Thomas on here. They did meet with him formally at the combine. I've done some stuff on here on him and talked a little bit about him on Twitter. Here's kind of like the blurb that I put in my big board that you can find on Steelers Now. My big board and my mock draft are both in the description of this video. So, like, if y'all want to bookmark or take that, y'all can. But I put height, weight, speed freak who annihilated everyone in his path during 2023. The athletic profile is a clear selling point. Thomas is a rapidly improving receiver who is still in the beginning stages of his developmental path. His role in college was extremely straightforward, but the right coaching staff could mold him into a game-changing terror at the next level. I think the big thing with Thomas is just the explosive plays, right? Like last year, I think he had over 500 yards on like slot fades and go routes alone. I mean, the LSU offense was literally built on slot fades, go balls, and like Neighbors and Thomas just winning one-on-one matchups. The thing that I wasn't originally as high on Thomas until I started to watch more. Like I needed to see him in sequence. And I started watching games at the beginning of the season, then I watched some games later in the season. Man, like you could just tell, like his development's been rapid. Like he's an underclassman, one of the few underclassmen that we got in the entire class. But his stuff against press coverage, I felt like just kept getting better and better. And that gave me the kind of the hope that this dude is, not as far away from like being what I need him to be. So, I think that the route tree stuff is obviously it's gonna create some potential drawbacks early on, right? Like he literally ran 3 routes in college. Like he ran a back shoulder fade and sometimes the occasional hitch. And then they threw him like a screen or two, but like he hardly ever got the chance to run slants or anything like that. So the route tree and stuff, I do think he's flexible in his lower body to where like that can certainly improve. I know a lot of people have comped him to Martavis Bryant. That's definitely a realistic outcome for him, but I think that he can be even better. One thing about Martavis is like he wasn't always consistent playing the ball in the air, and I thought Thomas really showed a lot of improvement last year in that regard. The size, the length, the wingspan, the leaping ability, all that stuff's there for him to be like a really, really dominant player at the catch point too. So I'm just kind of looking at some of his stuff for Pro Football Focus because I wanted the exact number. Yeah, on go routes last year, Thomas had 14 targets, 12 receptions, 502 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He scored 17 touchdowns last year, guys. So, um, like I said, he's really young and still really early about like in his development, but he's definitely a guy like if you're talking about shooting for the moon. Like that's a guy that you want to shoot for the moon on. So, really an interesting player for sure. Let's see here. Do you see a scenario and where we drafted dominant left tackle in the first, decide to keep Broderick at right tackle? Yeah, I mean, I think Fautanu probably is in that regard, right? Like um, you could see them kicking or keeping Broderick over at right tackle in that scenario. Maybe like Fashanu. I don't know. I don't think he's going to go that low, but I mean, he could. I don't want to rule anything out. There's not a ton of other like prospects that I would prefer at left tackle over Broderick, especially if that's where he's most comfortable. Um, but but yeah, what time is the kick off first pick? 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. I will be on here. I don't even know what time it is. 7:04. Okay. So we got a little bit. So I'm taking all your questions, anything like that that y'all want to talk about. Steelers, NFL draft, scenarios, anything. If y'all want to kick me any like trade rumor gossip that y'all are seeing on the Twitter sphere on online, that would be cool. Just y'all keep me in the loop. I appreciate it. Um, their target is Barton. I was saying they draft Barton before they brought him in for a visit. Yeah, I mean it's definitely possible, man. Like I said, that was my guess. I went with him for the mock. So Jake, I see you asked that too. The mock draft is in the description, but I went with Graham Barton in the first round. I think that's the play. This is a good scenario. I know that you guys may or may not have had the chance to check this out before because we recorded it pretty late and I didn't get it up super early. But Nick Martin and I did get the chance to like talk a little bit about Cortland Sutton and just kind of the rumors out there. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reported that the Steelers have had some preliminary discussions about Sutton. Sorry, I'm getting like parched. But they've had some preliminary discussions there. We know that they've made calls on a lot of these veteran wide receivers, right? Sutton obviously has um, the the repertoire, the familiarity with Russ. I think that plays a part in it. He's going to be 29 years old. I have heard that he's potentially looking for a new contract. That throws a little bit of a wrench into things as well. He's got, I think, like a 13, $14 million cap hit. Don't quote me on that part of it. But, I think really for me, I think the Steelers are going to probably try to be aggressive in getting a wide receiver in the draft, like in the first 2 rounds. Now, who that is, like I talked about my mock draft, like trading back up in the second round if AD Mitchell starts to slide, or maybe trading up in the second round, or trying to get a guy like Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, and some of these bigger guys. Maybe it's just they stick and pick at 51. They take Ricky Pearsall from Florida, who I like as well. But I think that there's a scenario here where, regardless of or depending on what happens in the first couple rounds, they may find that their best option is to trade like a late round pick or some type of pick swap for Sutton, take his contract on, and he immediately comes in and gives you that like stopgap, right? I think Sutton kind of has a kind of what I would say is diminished version of Pickens' game, in my opinion. He's exceptional at the catch point. He's got some highlight reel grabs all over his stuff. He's good in the red zone. Dude scores touchdowns. He plays through contact. He's physical. One area that he does have over Pickens is he's a very, very good blocker. I don't think that Sutton's a naturally great separator, but I'm also saying this based on like what I've seen from Sutton over the years, date back to college, and then what I saw when I went back and watched every single pass that Russ threw last year. So like I've seen Sutton, and I just was pretty underwhelmed, honestly, by the Denver receivers. Sutton included in that, Jerry Jeudy, some of those guys. I liked Marvin Mims coming out, but I kind of knew that he wasn't a year one guy. But I like the idea as long as the cost is like a day 3 pick and you're picking up the salary. If we're talking about anything more than that or signing him to a contract extension, I'm just not for that, man. Like the Steelers don't have that like foundational piece on offense right now. They don't have anyone that's even the quarterbacks aren't signed for next year and beyond. So that's kind of something to think about. I just cannot fathom being under the impression that the right move there would be we're going to build around Cortland Sutton and sign him to a 2-3 year extension, and he's going to be the guy that we kind of build the ship around. That seems weird to me, especially after you just traded Deontay Johnson, who's similar age, in my opinion, a better player or more valuable player with his route running. So he's just not the perfect complement, I feel like, for Pickens. But like I said, I can get on board and see the vision with it because I do think he's a solid number 2. They need receiver help bad. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but we'll see what the tape says. Assuming if that actually happens, I probably think it's way more likely that happens than like Ayuk, right? So, Tyler, what's good, Tyler? I have a hard time thinking about a trade up, but man, if Rome falls, man, I just yeah. We talked a little bit earlier about uh talked a little bit earlier about the live stream. If I'm gonna go live after the selection, or if I'm just gonna like put up like a reaction and get to the film room or whatever, Rome would be a live stream. We'd have to do that because that would be pretty exciting. So but yeah, if y'all don't already like have notifications on for the channel, make sure you subscribe, like the video. All that stuff helps support me, and I really appreciate it. And the notifications will give you guys, an alert whenever I go live or schedule something to go live. So definitely, I'm gonna have a ton, like an obnoxious version of content up over the next like week or two. I'm really excited about it. What's good, Jeff? What's good? What's good, Eddie? A lot of you guys, very familiar faces in the chat. I really appreciate that. Um, Joe, they are not trading back. They never trade back in the first round. That is true. I would just like to point out, though, that this is a different regime. I don't think you can make like nearly as definitive of statements about like what they will or won't do with Khan and Weidel in the building. I think that especially like when it comes to like trading up, trading down. I mean, Colbert never moved around the board, and it used to drive me freaking insane. But then Khan comes in his very first draft. He trades up in the first round, trades back in the third round. So I'm hoping that he's going to be more willing to, move around the board. We will see if that actually ends up being the case. But I think that's kind of interesting. Just see Belichick's big board on. I don't know who is Mager, but he has Fautano as an interior offensive lineman. Yeah, I mean, like I said, some people do have him as an interior guy. I think Fautano is like movement skills combined with him having the long arms. Like, I want him at tackle. I think you'd kind of be selling yourself a little bit short, I think, if you put him at guard, but he could play guard. Like I said, I think that he's the one guy in this class that like actually might have 5 tool or 5 position versatility. That's just my take on it. Should the Steelers double dip at tackle? No. Or unless you're saying take a tackle and a center, like with the first 2 picks, I think there's definitely a scenario where you do that. Like, for example, if they took Amarius Mims at 20 and then moved up in the second round to take a guy like Zach Frazier or something like that, yeah, I could definitely see that as a likely scenario for sure. Oh, McAfee. Sorry, autocorrect, gotcha. Happens to me all the time. The amount of stuff that I end up having to delete on Twitter is just absurd, man. Eric, thank you. I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for the support. Mark, thank you for the support very much. Skull Vikings. There's some Vikings folks in here. Bad move by Omar was trading Deontay for peanuts. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not ready to fully give that take yet. I think the trade in a vacuum, I mean, I've said this on here multiple forums. The trade in a vacuum doesn't look good. Like, Dante Jackson's not as good of a player as Deontay Johnson is. I don't think there's any debate about that, to be honest, in my eyes. But I want to see what they would be able to do with the cap space that they opened up from that move and what they did in the draft before I immediately said, like, yeah, that was a mistake. And that's also acknowledging the fact that Deontay didn't want to be here. So I can't I can't speak a ton of that. I mentioned Cedric Gray earlier, kind of like a mid-round guy that they've shown interest in, more of a pass coverage guy. Kind of would be a nice, um, it would be a nice, compliment to some of the guys that they already have, and he'd be somebody if they were, talking about grabbing a linebacker, which I do think they will. Watching this at the gym. What's up, Michael? Enjoy your workout, man. I got in there a little bit earlier today. So, I think the hard thing is that we normally can get quality guys. I'm assuming you're probably talking about receiver. Yeah, Leggett, man, he's an interesting player. I kind of had to watch like more and more of him and be a little more open minded because originally when I was watching him, I was like, man, we're talking about this dude in the top 50. I don't, I don't know. Um, that was just really, really puzzling to me at first. But then I started to see the vision. Like I think that as a power slot, you get this dude a free runway. He can really plant, put his foot in the ground. He can win vertically, like against safeties and slot corners. He high points the football, outstanding. Like I absolutely love the way like the vertical is exceptional. Um, Contested catchability. You get this dude a runway on like drag routes. Like there was a drag that he caught last year, like kind of underneath. Ended up taking this thing like 70 something yards for a touchdown. So there's stuff there. I think he's a route runner against press. Very, very raw, especially for a guy that's actually a fifth year senior. Like he's not too old, but he is a little bit of an older prospect. He just didn't get to play a lot of ball over the first couple seasons of his career. Dane actually had some really good stuff. Let me see if I can find it really quick for you guys. He had some really good stuff in the Beast, the draft guide on Leggett, I believe. But I actually like researched because I wanted to kind of know a little bit like what's this dude really like, right? Like in terms of like his mentality, how's he wired? I was trying to find everything, but his coaches at South Carolina absolutely rave about his work ethic. I mean, they just say this dude like never missed a practice. All type of really good stuff in terms of like just being, first one in, last one out type of player. And I think for a guy who still has a good amount of, runway left to go to really reaching his ceiling, I think you kind of need that attitude. Um, I'm just kind of reading some of Dane's stuff. Yeah, this is from Brugler's draft guide. Established a reputation for his reliability and toughness in the Gamecocks program. NFL scout. The coaches say he became their best practice player. Never misses a practice. Had a career year in 2023, becoming the second player in school history to surpass 1,200 receiving yards, joining Alshon Jeffrey in 2010. Um, but another thing about Leggett, like he has returned kicks a couple times, I believe. He had a 100-yard touchdown in 2022, and he's also been a gunner on special teams. So like somebody asked a gunner related question earlier, which I really appreciate. Thank you. Um, but that could be a potential option there on day two. Maybe early on he contributes there. Yeah, would love to see Trice get healthy, man. I think he's a lottery ticket right now, right? Can't depend on him necessarily, but man, if he could put it together, that'd be awesome. Da, 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 da. Greg, why is the Boston College DB not highly regarded? He looks great. Yeah, we're talking about Elijah Jones. His film is fantastic. I've talked, at length about in different forums. There is a reason that he is not um, as highly regarded. There is a reason that I removed him from my big board. I'm not going to get into those reasons on stream, but that's just, yeah, that's the answer. The best answer that I can give you, to be honest. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up. D with a light 300 in the chat. My dog Joe. I'm sending people to around the 412 after this. All 300 people are going to go over there and hang out. Bug Joe, Bug Zach. But yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I think they might have missed the boat on getting Daniels in before the market exploded, man. Have you seen like some of these contracts? Like Robert Hunt, I think just got like 100 mil, something crazy like that. And I think that Daniels is probably that type of player. I don't know about paying James Daniels 100 mil. I think I'd probably just rather draft a guard. But yeah, and very interesting. My dog Zach Skirt. Yeah, Zach's channel. Zach, if you're still in here, please drop your around the 412 handle so that people can know where to find you. Jay said, "Time to end the nightmare center. Mario go around." I mean, that's kind of like my thing too. Like, I understand the premium position argument, and ideally, you would always do that in the first round, right? But I'm also one of those people that I'm just kind of tired of watching bad center play. So, like, if they do take one, and it's Jackson Paris Johnson, who I think is probably my favorite option, or even Grant Barton in the first round, I could stomach it. I'll get over it. Awesome stuff, Derek. Enjoy the draft. Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Aaron, I appreciate you, man. You getting on them. Getting on them. Appreciate it. Mims is a hard pass for me. Need a starter in round one. You don't think Mims can start day one? I don't know, man. I can. I think he can start day one. I just, I am worried. I am worried about the injuries. I think I was joking about this on the channel at some point, that I was literally saying, like, if they took Mims, I would be really happy because I think his film's really good. I think he's a good athlete, really long arms, a lot to like with his profile. But I think, like, after you did it, after you turn the card in, everybody just needs to go back to the conference room and just do a little prayer circle. Just pray that this dude's durable enough to be able to stay healthy for you. Because I think if he does, man, the ceiling is it's pretty high. Like, I think he could be one of the better pass protecting right tackles of the league. So this is why I love the channel. Stay true to yourself. Yeah, always, man. Always. I'm very opinionated and I won't back down from that. But I do put the work in to, like, establish those opinions. That doesn't always mean I'm right or wrong. I try to remain open minded, listen to other people's opinions as well. Try to take that into effect. My big thing, man, like, I love talking ball, and I want to give you guys, like, another thing with me is I think that's one of the things that I want my channel and, like, my quote unquote brand or whatever to be known for, is just like the objectivity of things. Like, you guys are always knowing, like, I don't say stuff for clicks. I don't get into the clickbait stuff. I'm not saying stuff for likes or whatever. I give you guys my honest opinions. And, like, that way, when I do get really excited about a player or a pick or a move or something like that, you guys can know that it's not me just being like a quote unquote fanboy. Y'all know that, like, there's actual reason for good optimism. And it does not mean you always have to agree with me. But that's just how I've always done it. And that's how I'm always going to do it. I've done things my way, and I'm going to continue to do things my way. So, Isaac Samalo, college center too. He is, I think you're right about that. Man, that was a while ago. But yeah, the thing with Samalo, though, not the type of mover that you would require at the center position, in my opinion, in Arthur Smith's offense. Where would you put Fautanu at along the offensive line? I'd start him at left tackle, to be honest. I am intrigued heavily by center. It's also curious to me because they there was a report out. I can't remember who it was, man, that they said that there was at least one or two teams in the first round that viewed him as the top ranked center in the draft, and it kind of, like, made me think, like, I wonder if that's the Steelers. I'm curious about that. But if you guys saw, I don't know if you guys saw it or whatever, but if you guys go watch Fautanu move at the combine, oh my God. Like, one of the best workouts. I try not to get overly fixated on guys working out in shorts, right? It doesn't matter a ton or doesn't change my evaluation. But the way that he moved, how athletic, how smooth he was, it's everything that you want. It's everything that you want at the left tackle position or any offensive lineman position, to be honest with you. He's freaking awesome. Hit the like button, or Derek or the Steelers would draft a punter round one as don't draft specialist, hashtag get it. I appreciate it. Just got called off work. Praise Jesus. Wow. That's a man. Shout out to you, Patrick. Merry Christmas, man. This is my draft weekend's my Christmas, but I feel like you just got blessed. That's dope. Mark, what up? What up? Going to a draft party. Want to support the channel and give you a like. I appreciate you, man, popping in. Enjoy the draft party. I'm actually having some people over here to watch the draft. I don't know if they're in the stream right now or not, but they'll be at my crib here in a little bit. We're gonna get some food, watch the draft. I'm gonna be giving all my thoughts and all that stuff. I'm really excited, man. Like I said, it's really funny. Like, my boys and stuff make fun of me, how invested I get in this stuff, how much time I spend, like, evaluating players and, in preparation for this 3-day stretch. But it's the best time of year, man. I can't help it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Ideal trade package for Ayuk. So we can talk about this real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on Ayuk just because I like I said I just think it's so unrealistic. But if the Niners do trade him, I think it's going to be this weekend. I know that they've called. I know originally when they called a couple weeks ago, they were shut down and said he wasn't on the table. That's just what I know. Now, ideal trade package, I think you're like Ayuk should command just based on the talent he is. He should command a first round pick, and then you're going to have to give him a contract that pays him as one of the top 5 paid wide receivers. To me, I don't care. Like I think he's a fantastic player. He's an exceptional route runner, wins at all 3 levels. He's tough. He makes contested catches. He blocks his tail off. Good character, no concerns in that. He's rapidly improved in that San Francisco system. He knows how to get open versus zone coverage. He's really good after the catch. I've seen him embarrass some really good corners. I don't have very many reservations at all about trading for him and paying him. Now, do I think it's likely? Absolutely not. I don't, to be honest with you. I think the Niners would be stupid to trade him. I would trade Debo, even if it meant trading him for an underwhelming haul before I traded Ayuk. I would not do it. But that's probably what it looks like is a first. If they traded him for less than a first, I would be a little bit depressed if the Steelers didn't jump on that. I just can't imagine that they would do that. Martavis, I'm assuming you're talking about Brian Thomas. I don't know, man. I don't know. Thomas to me, I think people I think people kind of gravitate a little bit towards like Martavis's highs, but like even in college, Martavis was never a really consistent player. He never did anything like Thomas did as a junior in the SEC, nonetheless. Never did anything like that. I mean, 17 touchdowns, man. I mean, his productivity was off the charts. And I'm not saying like college production is like the number one thing that I value, but like he was really, really good last year. And I saw rapid improvement throughout the year. And that's something that I think is going to probably continue, to be honest with you. Um, who do you want at 20? Who do you think they take a sleeper pick at 20? Man, that's tough. Um, I maybe it's just the me trying to be open minded thing, but I don't really have like a specific like player that I'm just going to be like so mad if they don't take. I would love for them to take AD Mitchell. Like that's one of my guys in the class. I think he's just I want him on the Steelers so bad, but I can understand if they don't want to deal with another high maintenance receiver to the point where I can't like be super mad about if they pass on him. I obviously think they're going to take Graham Barton. That was who I mocked to the Steelers. You guys can go look at that on SteelersNow.com. Just a reminder, if you haven't been in here, my big board and mock draft for SteelersNow.com is in the description. So you guys can go check that out. But a sleeper pick at 20, a sleeper pick at 20. Um, man, I don't know. Zach Frazier, maybe Zach Frazier. I'll go with Zach Frazier right there. As far as a sleeper pick. Yep, you know where to redirect the traffic. Y'all make sure you go hit up around the 412. They better not waste that 6th round pick on a player they know will never make it. I mean, as long as you're not drafting like a 4th quarterback when you know that you're only going to keep 3 quarterbacks, I think that that's fine. Um, but yeah, I don't know. 1 a.m. over here. This will be a long night. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Trying to get to some of these super chats. Oh my gosh. Definitely. I think that's the biggest super chat I've ever gotten. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. That will be I'll use that to buy my wings and my monster energy drinks. That's gonna power me through the next 3 days of me not sleeping and pumping out all this content. But I appreciate you, man. Facts Mob. You're a big time supporter of the channel. I definitely notice, and I try to interact as much as I can with like the comments and all that stuff. But I know who consistently supports the channel and all that stuff. I read all of it, so I appreciate y'all so much. What's your opinion on Jordan Schultz tweeted about someone in the league compared to Young? Don't see it. Probably one of the worst comps I've ever heard in my life, to be honest with you. See, there you go. There's my objective takes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think that's an idiotic thing. But scouts say stupid stuff all the time. To be honest with you, I've heard some really bad takes this cycle about quote unquote scouts. I just don't see it, man. Let's see. Is there a team ahead of the Steelers that have the same exact pressing needs? That's a good question. I think the short answer is yes, because pretty much everyone seems to want to tackle. Like New Orleans has to get a tackle. I just don't see. I don't know. Like they have Trevor Penning at left tackle. They don't. I don't think they like that experiment has been terrible. He should never been drafted in the first round. They probably need a left tackle. If Fashanu's there, I can't imagine that they won't take him. Indy, as far as like if you're thinking that the Steelers may go receiver in the first round, Indy is still a potential like receiver spot, especially with Steichen coming over from Philly, where they had AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. They may be looking for a running partner with Michael Pittman. Cincinnati is another interesting kind of situation because they're picking two spots ahead of the Steelers, but then you've got Cincinnati really really needs like I think Cincinnati really wants a right tackle or a tackle, so you could see like maybe J.C. Latham or maybe Amarius Mims go right there. Um, but that's interesting. They did sign Trent Brown, I believe, but like Trent and Orlando Brown are not guys that I would probably necessarily say they're like long-term starters or guys that you're building your foundation around. Um, a lot of you guys are commenting on my Pepsi Zero Sugar. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking for 2 straight hours, like get a little parched. And I'm really, really trying to make sure that I don't crack open an energy drink until the draft starts because I did get a little bit of sleep before this, and I want to make sure that I can, sustain this and be up for the long haul to stay up afterwards and try to do some content, crank some stuff out. Do you think trade? Yeah, James. I talked a little bit about that already. I do think a trade for Sutton kind of seems relatively likely in my opinion, especially if they can't get the receiver that they want in the first two rounds of the draft. It's a good question. Would you rather Mims and Frazier or Barton and Pearsall? Oh man, that's a good question. Um, to be honest, I think I'm kind of indifferent in that scenario because I kind of view both like if you look at my board, like those two sets of players are really close together. I think Mims is like 17th or 18th on my board, and Barton is in the early 20s, and then Frazier is like 36, and then Pearsall's 38. So like there's really not a ton of difference there for me. I would say like maybe Mims and Frazier just because of the upside and like the premium position. I mean, I don't know. Because I guess there's one premium position in both those scenarios. I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I think they're pretty even rounded. Oh, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, you're not watching. Hey, nobody making you watch, man. I get it. I'll be watching. I'll be watching. I'm not gonna say like I'm super super excited just because I think they're gonna be like just world beaters out there, but I'm excited to watch better quarterback play. It's tough. Like when you're a film guy and obviously you guys are all fans of the Steelers. We love to watch the games on Sundays, and then I got to go back and I don't have to. I do because I love it, but I go back and watch the game. Sometimes 2-3 times. It's pretty rough to do sometimes when you don't have good quarterback play out there. So um, I think Barton is Pouncey 2.0. Ooh-wee. It's high expectations, man. It's high expectations. I will say, like, just the athleticism. Like, that's what I was kind of talking about earlier. And, like, I mentioned this in the mock. But, if you're going to take a center early, they need to be an elite athlete, in my opinion. And I think that kind of goes back to, like, the Pouncey thing. Like, Pouncey's athleticism, especially, like, before, like, he started having some of those injuries, was just off the charts. It was really, like, unlike few that we had really ever seen at the position. Um, so I think that's definitely something to monitor. My guy, Joe, who do you think is someone who could be a surprise pick in the first? Oh, man, let me go look at the consensus board. I'll give you guys my take. A surprise pick in the first. Like Patrick Paul, I refuse to believe that we're doing that. I refuse to believe it. I would say, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a guy that's low on the consensus board that I think could legitimately slide in with one of the last picks, Christian Haynes, interior offensive lineman from UConn. A little bit of an older prospect, but a guy that I actually really like. I think that he could potentially go to maybe Baltimore. I love his fit with San Francisco. Sounds like San Francisco may want another receiver because they may have to deal one of theirs. But just I love the length in pass pro. I think the first step off the ball in the run game is awesome. He executes reach blocks at a really high level. I think All right, so I told you guys that was gonna happen, right? Like, definitely gonna happen eventually. My mic finally on me again. I was really surprised that it went that long. I don't know how long my stuff caught off about Christian Haynes, but hopefully you guys can still hear me. My audio's just been really buggy with my mic over the past week or two. I do want to get to some of this. Um, really appreciate that. Let me see here. See if I can put this on the screen. Love you. Your defensive analysis vid, best I hear. Cheers. Here we go. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. I hope that you guys enjoy the draft. Yeah, I'm really excited to get to like the film room on a lot of these players, man. Like it's going to be really interesting. I'm very, very optimistic about this haul. I think the Steelers are in a good spot. I think um, there's gonna be a lot of trades, in my opinion. Like that's like the one thing I kept coming back to is there are gonna be a lot of trades um, in this first round, just because I think the values of like what people or like what teams are looking for kind of vary. And then I just think that the opinions on some of those players in the back half of the first round are kind of just all over the place. So, new sub, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Yeah, big, big donation. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for the supers. Thank y'all for the questions, all that stuff. I'm not gonna stream for too much longer, so I'm just glad my mic at least made it uh relatively far through the chat. And then hopefully y'all are freaking out in the chat. Unlucky. Yeah. I'll have a new mic before some say Walmart has microphones on clearance today, those fancy blue ones. My wife's out right now. She's actually going to get a mic for me. So, but I know my audio sounds different now because I'm just like talking into my computer instead, but it just is what it is. But I'll be good like post draft. Like I should be hopefully good with the technical difficulties. If no trades, Barton, Guyton, then Pearsall feels too right. Yeah. I think Guyton for me, like 20 is definitely rich for me. Like Guyton's the 32nd ranked player on my big board. He is very toolsy in my opinion. Like I do think that the length. I think that you see some like basketball like mirror ability in his profile. I think that he's pretty heavy handed. He has some really good moments in the run game too. The thing with Guyton that scares me is his footwork just needs to be completely redone from like the ground up, and that when you're talking about drafting another offensive tackle that is raw in pass protection and needs like major technical refinement when you just took Broderick Jones, I think that that's a little bit scary. So, but we'll see. I do think, like, to me, I would prefer a trade down in that scenario before taking Guyton at 20. But, Pearsall at 51, hey, man, I think Ricky Slick Rick, I think he'd be a good pick right there. He's a guy that I like. I've done some stuff on the channel for him, so you guys go check that out if you're really interested or whatever. Tomorrow, I doubt he goes in the first round, but he's probably going to come off the board sometime relatively early on day two. But if y'all want like a full scouting report, there's one on my channel that y'all can go look at. I want to try to get to see it's 7:36. I got about like probably 10 minutes or so. I want to try to get to as much stuff as I can. I know. Let's see. First 3 round centers in the top 15 Russian teams. Kelly, Ragnow. Yeah, I think like Ragnow for me is always like going to be like one of the rare occasions of guys that I 100% would take in the first round all day long. I don't think anyone in this class is on that quite on that level, but there's definitely some good centers on there. Please don't get a blue Yeti. That's what I've had. Now I'm in this predicament, right? No, my mic, I got this like when I first started the channel. So I mean, I've had this for over a year now. I don't know what's going on. Like my USB, I guess, is messing up to where it's like it's losing connection through my stream, and I don't know why. I don't know why it's like that, but um, where's the Dr. Dre in the studio? Yeah, this is a good point about Pearsall. If there is one thing that gives me pause or concern about like his fit in the offense, or like he's just a little bit different in that regard of the other guys that the Steelers have shown interest in the draft and through free agency or trades or whatever. just the play strength is the one thing that I kept coming back to because it's really the only like potentially fatal flaw in his game, in my opinion. Let's just see. Steve, according to Pro Football Focus, Jackson Powers Johnson was number one overall in run blocking, number two overall in pass blocking. What am I missing? Zero sacks and 471 plays. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree. He finished, I think, in the low 20s for me. Powers Johnson was one of those guys that had like a late first. He is the number one interior offensive lineman, the number one center on my board. I like JPJ quite a bit, man. I think some of the things that he can do out in space are they're just absolutely special. His targeting system, the ability to work through screens, he can pull. He's freaking nasty, man. Like constantly talking trash, constantly finishing through the whistle. I think he's got like good quickness off the ball. In terms of like pass protection, he has like the mirror ability to slide quickness that you really want in the center. And I also think like it's worth noting, right, that like this is a dude who has only played 1 year at the center position. 1 year. So he's got 1 year of experience. He's still 21 years old. He's still like a long way to go. And I think that that blend of athleticism and how good he already is really enticing in terms of what he could potentially be. And I think that he could potentially be like a Pro Bowl level, maybe center. And that's why I think, if they took him at 20, that'd be cool. I just think he's probably the least likely of the big three. I feel like that they're likely to pick. I feel like they would prefer Barton in the first round. I don't know about him and Frazier, like how they would view them. The concussions and the injury stuff is whatever. I mean, the concussions is probably a bigger deal for him because he's consistently, banging his helmet up against somebody's other helmet or whatever. But, I don't know. That it's a medical thing that I try to stay away from. Would you ever collab with All Steelers Talk again? Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I haven't been back on there since I left All Steelers and joined Steelers now, but there's no like, I mean, I'm still cool with them. I saw Noah at the combine. Noah and I still chat from time to time. Nick was on my channel last night from All Steelers. Nick's like one of my absolute best, I would say like best friends over the internet. He and I talk ball, talk prospects nonstop. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Nick Martin, but if y'all missed it or want something to listen to, kind of in the background, if y'all are watching the draft, whatever, Nick Martin's big board, or excuse me, not big board, draft guide is out. Y'all need to check that out. It's got a lot of good stuff. Nick's got a really good eye for ball, man. So, but yeah, I would absolutely collab with them again. Steven, those guys, they're cool people. They all good in my book. There's no ill will or anything like that. I know a lot of you guys are from like or have followed me since I was over there, so I appreciate y'all follow me over here too. Hit the like button, yeah. Appreciate it. Um, Oh, y'all are killing me, man. Y'all about to send me in tears before the draft. Y'all covering my wings for tonight. Again, I appreciate that. Thank you, Leo. Best draft content steals. Otherwise, keep it up. I'm gonna make you guys proud this weekend, man. I'm gonna turn up with the content. So I'm really excited to talk ball with y'all, throughout the weekend, really over into next week too, because we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm rooting for a really good outcome for the Steelers draft. I got faith in the con artist. Got faith in him. So Barton's improving at center though. Yeah, I mean only about 400 snaps, I think, at center. He hasn't played there since his freshman year, but I think that the traits are there for sure. Like the traits are absolutely there. Nick is there. He's here. He's in the chat. I appreciate that. But yeah, Nick's who I was talking about. Y'all need to go watch his draft guide. Absolutely one of the best in the business. Somebody that I really appreciate their opinion, puts in a ton of work, and deserves to have his work recognized for sure. Still Wolverine, my guy. Barton, Pearsall, Melton, Fisher, Gray, call him a shot. Haha, let's go. Man, Melton is a guy. If they didn't have the needs they did on offense, like I just think it seems like Melton is going to be taken early on day two. It seems like it because Daniel Jeremiah is typically one of the more accurate forecasters. He's got him inside the top 50. He's had him in there for the past like month or so. He tested like crazy. I think his tape is pretty solid. I do like him better on the outside than in the slot, but I think he could probably play there. But he's a guy that I do like. definitely. He's in my top 50 as well. Definitely the day two cornerbacks was really kind of a landmine or a landfill a little bit, just because it was like some of the guys had good tape, but they were terrible testers. Some of the guys had, bad tape, but they were good testers. It was hard to find guys that tested really well that had at least like above average tape. A guy that I really, really liked their tape was Ennis Rakestraw Jr. From Missouri. His tape was so good, so good. The only problem is, man, he does not have the athleticism, I think, to hang full time outside. So maybe a move to the slide. I watched Pearsall. Speaking of him, I watched him run away from Rakestraw for a big play on an over route. I think it was last year. He also beat him for a touchdown on an over route. I just think that the speed is like the one thing that's missing in his game. Everything else is great. Like, he's technically refined. Love his competitiveness. Love his attitude, the demeanor. He's willing to tackle. But that's the thing. I just worry a little bit about the speed, and it's a stopwatch position, corner. Like, speed definitely matters. So also I second that. Don't get a Blue Yeti that picks up so much background noise. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what I get. I don't know. I got to get something for the rest of the week. I'm team trade down. Yeah, me too. I look at Khan's comments about like not wanting to trade away from a good player, and I think that Barton to me is going to be a good enough player for them to not want to trade down. I appreciate the content for real. You give good insight. Appreciate y'all for chopping it up with me. My guy, big man, how you doing? Yeah, happy draft weekend, man. I hope that you all have a fun time throughout the weekend, man. It's gonna be cool. I know hopefully y'all ain't gotta work or be up early maybe for work tomorrow, but it's gonna be a fun night. But I promise there's gonna be a lot of content. What about Fautanu number one for switch to center? Yeah, I talked about that a little bit earlier. I think you can play center. The hands are so quick, man. I think, and his athleticism is absolutely just crazy. But I didn't even mean to highlight that. But no, they're all Steelers folks, man. Like, I got nothing but love for them. They do great work, great content. I'm very proud of like what we were able, like, or what I was able to be a small portion of helping build over there. And I wish them nothing but success. Max Melton seen that tape. Mason McCormick, yeah, I saw some stuff. McCormick just missed my top 100. I don't think that he's the athlete that he tested as, to be honest, but he's a good player, man. I watched like 2.5 games. I knew that he wasn't going to grade in the top 100, so I couldn't watch a ton more. But the Steelers had a top 30 with him, so I think that's definitely in play, right? So, Tyler, I'm up at 4:30 during the week, man. Y'all crazy. Sit your girl to pick up the mic. Hey, she's a trooper, man. My wife holds it down. She got my taking my daughter to t-ball practice right now. She's bringing the mic home for me to work. It's very nice. AJ Brown, 3-year, $96 million extension. Word. That's a big bag. That's a big bag. Interesting. Yeah, wide receivers are getting paid, man. I'm sure Brandon Ayuk's probably dancing, dancing right now at his crib because he's about to get an absolute bag. But man, y'all are crazy. Y'all are absolutely nuts. Super sticker, $10. Thank y'all so much, man. Appreciate it very much. First pick got to get drafted this year. It's gonna be the tackle. I don't know how to say his name. I've watched a little bit of his tape. He wasn't somebody that I actually evaluated, like graded. I actually know he's got some fans in the top 100 or some bit boards that I looked afterwards. But the tackle will be the first player drafted, I think, at Pitt. I'm trying to think. The corner, Devonshire, could potentially be drafted. They got another secondary player as well that I think could potentially get drafted as well. But thanks again for the super chat, man. Steeler Kev, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. I plugged your live on Steelers Now. You were on yesterday. They removed it. I don't know if that. I think I saw you tweet. Did you tweet that at me? Because I think I saw it when I woke up this morning. I don't think that that's actually what happened. YouTube has like monitoring for comments, and like you can set your like moderation levels. That way, like people can't just comment on your videos and like cuss you out and stuff. So like sometimes like if you get on there and say certain things, sometimes the moderation's weird, but sometimes if you say certain things, it'll automatically like remove it, and you have to go in and approve the comment. So that could have been what happened. Now they could have removed it. I don't know. I don't know why they would have, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I did something. I don't think so though. But we'll see. Shout out to Mrs. Bill. Absolutely. Yeah. No, she's a superhero, man. She allows me to do like all this stuff on the side. I mean, it's pretty awesome, to be honest with you. It's pretty awesome. Let's see. Maybe because you linked it. Yeah. If you link, that's probably what it was. If you link other people's channels in the comments or anything like that, it'll kick it. So that's probably what happened. Steelers to the top 30. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he would be somebody that I definitely would think that they would be interested in the middle rounds for sure. Tuned in late. What's the best surprise Omar could play? John, I got you one, man. Trade up for AD Mitchell in the second round. That's like my surprise kind of let's get really crazy and weird. Derek's gonna go crazy if that happens on the live stream. But I think that's pretty much it for me, man. I'm gonna hop off here because I gotta, I got people coming to my crib. Watch, got a little draft party cooking. But I appreciate you guys, and we had hundreds of people in here throughout over the past 2 hours. Y'all come in here, listen to me rant, gave me good questions. It was awesome talking ball with y'all, man. This is something I really enjoy doing, like the pre NFL draft live streams every year, just because it gives me a chance to interact with you guys. Talk ball, kick it, all that stuff, and we'll see what happens tonight, man. It's gonna be interesting. We're going. I think we're going to have a new Pittsburgh Steeler by the end of the night. I think. I mean, they could trade out of the first round altogether, but I definitely doubt that that's going to actually that's going to happen. But they could trade down. I don't see out of the first round though. But just before you guys exit, please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. Y'all know the deal, man. I'm going to have plenty of content on Steelers Now on the channel over the next like several days. So you're definitely going to want to. You're definitely going to want to check that out. So I'm excited to get all that stuff to you guys. Tyler, want to get to your super chat real quick. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. That's y'all are awesome. I don't even really have words for all the super chats, man. Y'all are almost like making me blush on camera. Y'all are crazy. But I appreciate the sub, man. Appreciate the super. I hope I'm gonna make y'all proud. I'm gonna give y'all a lot of good stuff over the next couple of days. If y'all want, y'all can drop me who y'all think the Steelers are going to take real quick. We'll kind of take a little quick poll on who y'all think the Steelers are going to take in the first round. Like I said, my money's on Graham Barton, but I'm curious on what you guys are going to think. But I definitely, it's going to be fun, man. I can't wait. I think it's going to be chaotic. Like I said, not just for the Steelers, but I think the NFL draft is going to be absolutely nutty. Like I think there's going to be a lot of trades. I think we're going to see maybe some veteran players traded as well. So it's going to be pretty cool. Let's just get to some of these last chats before I got to dip. Taylor, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. But as always, I appreciate you guys. Y'all enjoy the rest of your night. Don't go nowhere. Just kick back, relax, watch the draft. And just enjoy it. A lot of people saying my money's on Mims. I think Mims is a good bet, man. Like I said, I'll probably change my mind between Graham Barton and Amarius Mims 10 times before I submitted the mock draft this morning. But ultimately, I landed on Barton. But we'll see. I'll be happy. I'll be happy with Mims too, for sure. Some people saying Brian Thomas Jr. Oh boy, that would be fun. That'd be a fun one for sure. So, but as always, I will be back later, some type of reaction. I may go live. I don't know. We'll see. And then I'll kind of dive into the film on whoever they pick and try to get something up maybe tomorrow. So as always, thank you guys so much for the love and support and for working with me during the technical difficulties as well. Peace and love. Y'all enjoy your week.